This is week 6 of the fall trimester. We started a new long pose. This one's going to be 5 weeks like all the other ones. I'm going to be painting this, but I always start off by doing a transfer drawing that lasts about 1 week. For this transfer drawing, I used charcoal, a bit of white chalk on Canson paper. On Monday, I did a small pencil drawing so I could just get myself familiar with the pose. And then on Tuesday, I started the big charcoal transfer drawing. I'm just mapping out the gesture in as few lines as possible, keeping it as simple as possible because I feel like when I keep things very simple with few lines, it gives me the feeling of freedom that I can really move things around really easily so I don't get stuck in a stagnant pose, so I can really work on keep correcting and really pushing the gesture. And when I first start a pose, I also like to use pretty dull charcoal. I'm using just Vine charcoal for this step, and I don't sharpen it, so the lines that I'm putting down on the paper are thick and kind of fuzzy, so I don't want to use razor sharp thin lines because I'm not totally exact where everything's going to be placed yet, so I like to use the bigger, fuzzier, softer lines. So I feel like I'm not locked down and I have a lot of room to still move things around a lot. And also when starting a long pose, especially when you're using a live model, the first few days, the model is probably just going to be figuring out what's most comfortable for them to be holding for long periods of time. So usually the first few days, actually it probably takes a week for the model to really lock into a pose that they're comfortable in. On Wednesday, I started adding tone for the shadow shapes. I personally see in masses rather than in lines, so pretty early on, I do like to add in a tone so I can really see the whole mass of the shadow shape and the whole mass of the light shape, which just makes it easier for me to be able to see proportions and to correct things. Also this day, I moved Delon's left arm closer into his body. I feel like he's now more consistently having it closer to his body, and I also like that the hand that arm is mostly a shadow shape, and then his hip and his leg down there are shadow shape as well. So moving it in closer, I can really meld the hand into the hip and have the shadow shapes be really connected. Thursday, I did a lot of work on the portrait and trying to get Delon's head to look like Delon's head. And I'm trying to move the whole drawing to be less generalized version of just a model standing in a pose, but to be really specifically Delon's body shape and his type, and just have it just look like how Delon actually looks in the pose. And for example, I'm now trying to get away from the thicker, generalized, fuzzier lines, and now I'm using sharper charcoal to really be confident with where I'm putting tension points and really showing the structure that is Delon's specific body. Friday then was finishing up this transfer drawing. I wanted to make sure that I got all the areas in the drawing really locked down. So I worked on the extended arm and the hand. And this one, because it's holding a pole, so this arm does move around a little bit. Delon's a really good model though, so he stays really consistent as a live human being can. But still, it does have some movement, so I was waiting till the end of the week to see how it was really consistently going to be holding that arm, so that's why I saved that arm for last. Though I drew the drawing too far over to the right, so the fingers kind of go off the page, but that's okay. When I transfer the drawing onto the canvas, I'll make sure that everything's placed right so none of the figure goes off the canvas. And I also noticed that the lower part of the extended arm, I made that a little bit too long, and I think I made the hand a little bit too long too, so when I work on the painting, I'll make sure that the proportion of the arm makes more sense. And then this last day working on it, Friday, I also put white chalk in the drawing. I'm feeling more confident with my transfer drawings now. I feel like this is the most naturalistic transfer drawing that I've done so far, and I feel like I got things locked into how I want to have them, and I think it's a good representation of Delon, so I was able to play around with some white chalk a little bit. The planes of his body that are really catching the most light, I added white chalk to give it another push towards naturalism, which isn't needed for a transfer drawing. It's just more fun to make a drawing more beautiful that way. So I added some chalk on his forehead, his nose, his shoulder, and then also his arm and his fingers have some white chalk on them. And because this is a transfer drawing, so I'm going to be taking this drawing, taking tracing paper over it, trace an image to get it onto my canvas. Since I'm going to have tracing paper over it, I want to make sure that the important lines are dark enough. So on this last day, I took sharp charcoal and really put dark, confident lines down, especially the lines that are really telling the story of Delon's gesture. So the important parts on this drawing is obviously the outline of the body, also his facial features, his ear, all these like tension points and articulation points like the ankles, knees, armpits, the gluteus fold. The top of the spine is really important so I can see the proportion of how his back is turned. But all in all, I'm really happy with how this transfer drawing turned out. I think it's the best one that I've done so far. I think one reason for this is I've been working really hard on my cast transfer drawing, which is a really complicated cast. And so I'm spending a lot of time making sure on my cast that all these forms are really simplified and really locked in. Before I was kind of more in the mindset of just really pushing through the transfer drawing because it's really just getting you to painting, which I prefer painting more than I do drawing, and the transfer drawings are to help you with painting. But it's also nice to then be in the mindset of just trying to make a really beautiful drawing at the same time. And so that's what I've been doing now with my cast. So this transfer drawing has been taking a while. It is a really, really complicated cast. So there's 4 figures in it. And so it's just taking a lot of time. I also forgot to take pictures at the end of each day, except for on Friday. So I only have 1 picture to show. But during the week, I started adding in white chalk. And I think that's really exciting, and it's really bringing a lot of life into the drawing. And I'm really liking how this drawing is coming along, and I'm having a lot of fun working on this now. And so I'm really going to try and push this drawing to be as beautiful as it can as a drawing in itself. And I hope that studying this cast through trying to draw it really well, that when it comes to me painting this, hopefully I can get the paint on it to look like I have a really good understanding of the form of the cast and not look like I'm struggling through it. So I'm going to keep working on this transfer drawing and see how far I can take it.